Yo, what is up, folks? It's your boy Sports PSP. Hope everyone's enjoying a fantastic day, fantastic Saturday. I got my man, Undisputed World Champ. Go follow him on TikTok, Instagram. He got a YouTube channel every Thursday nights, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Right? Is that right, Champ?
Yes, indeed.
How you doing, my man?
I'm doing good, man. Enjoying a lot of good basketball and a lot of good wrestling, man. Elimination Chamber was this morning. Hell of a show, man. Hell of a show. The road to WrestleMania continues as usual. Shout out to Columbus, Georgia.
As always, ain't nothing better than the South, man. Good Southern hospitality, good food too in Columbus, Georgia, from what I've heard from what you told me.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Absolutely. Let's talk about some NFL, man. The Chicago Bears, they got to make a serious decision. This is now their second consecutive season. They have the number one overall pick. They are in a dilemma. Either keep Justin Fields or trade Justin Fields and still keep that number one overall pick and draft Caleb Williams. What do you think that the Chicago Bears do? Do you think they should keep Justin Fields, trade the number one overall pick, and get something like another draft pick and use that on offensive linemen? Because you've been on the record saying, champ, quarterback can't throw behind his back. And plus, they also need help on the defensive side of the football field. Or should they draft Caleb Williams, in your opinion?
To be honest with you, you have to make football sense. And my thing is this right now, you have a hell of a lot more needs than just the quarterback position. Now, you can opt out of Justin Fields' deal next year if he doesn't perform well this year. But I think for the time being, you need to look into trading that first overall pick to get you some linemen or and to get add to the pass rush. And also depending on that what kind of deal that you may receive at this point. Because if you receive super haul from, let's say, the Giants, you might want to consider that, especially if you could get 2 first round, 2 second rounds, and maybe a third round and a player out of it. And not to mention, I just heard from we all hearing from the grapevine that the Las Vegas Raiders are looking for a quarterback as well. They're vying for the services of Justin Fields or that first overall pick. So it depends on what you can get. I would recommend trading that first overall pick and getting you some more players. You need offensive line. You need offensive line play because guess what? What good is it going to do you to bring in a would-be franchise quarterback like a Caleb Williams if he's still on his back, if he's still running for his life like Justin Fields have? And people can complain that Justin Fields hold on to the ball too long. It's like, hey, I only got 2 seconds before I'm knocked on my behind
Caleb
this
Williams
offensive
ain't much
line.
different.
Yeah. So guess what? I only got a couple seconds before I'm knocked on my behind this offensive line. That's how come I'm trying. That's how come I'm rushing for almost 1,200 yards a year. It's not like a situation where with Justin Fields. It's not like a situation where Lamar Jackson, where it's just a part of the game. It's literally he has to literally run for his life and make plays behind that offensive line they have. They don't have one.
Mm-hmm.
So my thing is they need to trade that first overall pick and go get a Olu Fashanu in the draft or Joe Alt or see, what big time offensive line, if they can't get those two, that they can get. Because guess what? Like I've said before, the quarterback can't throw on his back. And if you're gonna have guys running for their life, what good is it gonna do you to bring in another quarterback like a Caleb Williams when you can't even protect the one you have? And my thing is, I'm thinking that people can say what they would like, but Justin Fields gets a bad rap. You don't have any offensive line. You don't have any quarter. You don't have any good running back play. You just have the weapon that you have is DJ Moore.
Right.
And guess what? You don't have a tight end. You don't have another person outside of him in order to get that ball to. So it's just you and DJ Moore, and you hope and pray that, hey, I'll be able to get out of this pocket in time in order to make some plays.
Not to
The
mention how
Bears,
bad that defense.
yes. And but fortunately for them, that defense towards the end, they ended up coming out on top because they end up ending the season on a high note with them becoming the number one running defense in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to add to the pass rush outside of Montez Sweat, I'll give you a lot of credit. You told me about Montez Sweat, by the way. So, and I
I
didn't
sure
listen.
have.
Yes, you did. I give you a hell of a lot of credit on that because I wasn't sold. I was not a fan. Hell of a job on that call because I wasn't buying it. But you need to add a pass rush outside of Montez Sweat. Now, one big free agent out there is Danielle Hunter. But you can also look in the pass rush as well in the draft for Dallas Turner that's coming out of the University of Alabama. He's one of the top pass rushers in the country at this point. If
Mm-hmm.
I'm not mistaken, he's projected to go top 10. So you need to add a hell of a lot more than just a quarterback. And guess what? People always want to overvalue quarterbacks. Now, that's not to say that that's not the most important game. That's not the most important position, mind you, in the league. But the thing is, the quarterback is only as good as the sum of his pieces around him. If you don't have a great offensive line, I don't care who you have as a quarterback, you're not going to get very, very far.
Yeah.
So,
Look, I'm not the biggest Justin Fields fans in the world. I don't. I still have concerns about him as far as with the NFL, but it's fair to say that he's not in the right type of circumstances for him to flourish. If the Bears do decide to draft Caleb Williams, they have to trade Justin Fields. You mentioned the Raiders. There's another team that should strongly consider him, and that's your team, champ, the Atlanta Falcons, because they
yes.
have pieces. They have Kyle Pitts. They have Bijan Robinson. Imagine how he and Bijan would be as far as with the read option, spread option. You also have Drake London. So you have enough pieces. Mind you, this is the NFC South, not the best division in football. We saw the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win the division. I thought that the Saints were going to win the division because Derek Carr on paper was the best quarterback and their defense. And unfortunately, I was proven wrong. And of course, because I'm an OU fan, shout out to my boy Baker for winning the division. So I think Atlanta would be perfect for Justin Fields, and he's from the Georgia area. So home to
Mhm.
home, you no longer have to deal with Arthur Smith anymore. You've had it with Arthur Smith. You were like, thank God he's gone. How would you feel about him in the ATL?
Hey, coming home is always a great thing, man. I mean, especially if you have a ready-made situation for you. You have good coaching, you have a good passing coach, you have new, a brand new coach in Raheem Morris, who's been with the franchise before, and help us have a good defense when we was on our Super Bowl run. Not to mention he was the interim coach. Now there was a lot of controversy once he became the interim coach of rumors about he was a little bit too close to the players and that he was, not conducting himself like the boss of the players. He was conducting himself like one of the workers. But granted, he was only 30 years old when he first got that job as far as the interim coach is concerned. But I think that would be an ideal situation for him. Not to mention, you have a defense that's on the verge. I mean, on the verge of being one of the best in the world. I mean, if you looked at that Atlanta defense, we made some strides, especially with Jesse Bates being a defensive player of the year candidate. That defense was outstanding this year. So you put Justin Fields on that behind that offensive line with those weapons and that defense, he has no choice but to flourish. And guess what? Next year, if you don't feel like that he's gotten the job done this year, guess what? You don't have to take up that 5th year option. You don't have to take up that
Right.
5th year option. He's on a rookie deal still. So he's
Mhm.
relatively
There was one person I feel like that would be an interesting component to have Justin Fields with the Atlanta Falcons. And unfortunately, champ, that's Eric Bieniemy. And I'm just reading this article here from ESPN's Adam Schefter. Former Washington Commanders offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy is finalizing a 2-year deal to join UCLA staff as its associate head coach slash offensive coordinator. Sources tell Pete Thamel and me. The move marks a significant hire for new UCLA coach Deshaun Foster, who intends forge on an NFL identity with the Bruins. It also marks a homecoming for Bieniemy, who grew up in the area and was a Bruins assistant from 2003 to 2005. Bieniemy
Mhm.
wrote in an email Saturday, quote, I attend high school there. I started my career in the league with the Chargers. It's obviously great to be back with the Bruins, where I was previously employed. So what are your thoughts about Bieniemy joining the UCLA Bruins? Because look, you've said it before on my pod and on the other pod I did. You talked about Eric Bieniemy, how he's trying to be trying to do too much just to show that he could be a head coach. And I thought he should have incorporated the run more because you have Brian Robinson Jr. and you have Antonio Gibson, particularly Brian Robinson Jr., especially on what he does run after, especially with the run and especially with catching the ball, because we've seen examples of him catching the ball, particularly the Seattle game. What are your thoughts about EB?
Hey, I think that's a hell of a move for him at this point, because the thing is, you got to think about it. He's running a wide open offense, pass heavy offense that's similar to the air raid at this point. And we see how many coaches are using the air raid, a modified version of the run and shoot at this point. So I think that's a hell of a move for him, especially with the Bruins being in the state that it's in right now with a new head coach. You're bringing in a new system. You're going to the Big 12, I believe, with those big, huge powerhouses. So you're going
You
to
mean the
have
Big
to
Ten?
the Big Ten. Excuse me. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for correcting me on that.
No
You're
problem.
going to the Big Ten, where you're going to have to have a lot of offense in order to move around in that division. Well, excuse me, that conference, because the defenses in that division are not going to be any joke, especially when you talk about Ohio State, Penn State,
Michigan.
and Michigan, a lot of other teams like that. Plus, that conference is going to be a lot more wide open than you think it is, because especially with Jim Harbaugh leaving to go to the NFL. So I think this is a good thing for not only for Eric Bieniemy to add to his resume as a coach, but also, hey, and I said this in another place. I said this in one of my videos. His path to being an NFL head coach is similar to Dennis Green's. And I think it's taken a lot of detours, but when he finally gets a head coaching job, it's going to instantly pay dividends. And I think that this is just another veer off the path in order for him to add to that resume. But once he gets that head coaching job, it's going to finally pay dividends. And I think this is going to be the job that elevates him in order for him to finally get a head coaching job.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Justin Fields. Back to Justin Fields. I'm reading an article here from Bears Wire USA Today. It says it right here. Fields, the Bears' 2021 first-round pick, is set to earn $25.6 million on the option in 2025. Fields fits in the third tier of players as he has yet to make a Pro Bowl, but meets the criteria for snaps played during his 3 years in the league. The decision to pick up the option must be made by May 2nd, and it is fully guaranteed. So if you're Chicago, I feel like regardless if he's your quarterback or not, you should pick up that fifth-year option, because you don't want to make the same mistake that the Giants did. Remember how the Giants did not pick up Daniel Jones' fifth-year option, and how Daniel Jones was able to make the playoffs and win the playoff game with Brian Daboll his first year as a head coach, and then after that, you're paying him $40 million per year. So you don't want to make the same mistake if you're Chicago.
Hey, pick up that fifth-year options and pay him $25 million, because even with that, you can still add to the team. And my thing is this: if you don't feel like he is worthy of another contract, and I'm sorry to bring this up, you can do like your Washington Commanders did and let him fly in free agency, like you did with like the Washington Commanders did with Kirk Cousins years ago in order to bring in Alex Smith. Now, you can do that, because the thing is, it's not only on that whole quarterback draft class from 2021, the only one that's made a Pro Bowl is Trevor Lawrence. So, and even he has strongly regressed this season. So neither one of those quarterbacks in that 2021 draft class has done wonders at this point.
Right.
So, hey, pick up that. If you end up not trading him, and you end up keeping him, and you keep on adding pieces in order to help him, pick up that fifth-year option so you won't have to pay him all of this money and overpay him, because there's a lot of overpaid quarterbacks in this league at this point. I mean, I think only about 3 or 4 have proved to earn their keep at a certain point. Lamar Jackson being one of them, and Patrick Mahomes, mind you. But, just so you won't have to overpay him, pick up that fifth-year option if you don't, in fact, end up trading him. And if you do end up trading him, I recommend whatever team gets him, pick up that fifth-year option so you won't have to pay him. There's a such thing as, because and you heard me say this, there's always a such thing as playing for a contract. There's one thing of being a great player and you finally having a breakout season. But there's a huge difference between being a great player and playing for a contract. and you don't want to get caught in the middle of a player playing for a contract, and now he's getting exposed on down the stretch once you give him that contract.
I agree. Let's talk about Caleb Williams. You did a video on your TikTok and you came to Caleb Williams' defense. It was an outfit that he wore for like GQ magazine. Can you please explain to the audience?
Yeah, it was a GQ suit that he did, and he did a dashiki. It was like a dashiki like ensemble that he had on, real orange, and it could give you the impression, and I stress that the impression of it being a dress, but it was like a rap ensemble with like orange and boots and stuff like that. But it could give you the impression of like a dress type thing, but it really looked like it was just a real long shirt, dashiki like thing. And I can't describe it in detail. I could describe it, but you'd have to see it for yourself.
You defended Caleb Williams, and rightfully so. I feel like too much criticism has been unfair on Caleb, particularly how he paints his fingernails, in which they said F Notre Dame, F Utah, the outfits, as you mentioned, with GQ, and then of course him crying to the stands. I think that was his mom. My thing is, why does that play a factor? And it shouldn't play a factor in Caleb Williams being drafted or not. But I feel like the criticism that he's getting is utterly ridiculous because it has nothing to do with his leadership. It has nothing to do with his play. It has nothing to do with off the field in terms of how the way he carries or conducts himself. Why do you think it's unfair? The criticism of Caleb Williams is unfair, in my opinion.
Well, number one, people are going to talk about how he said F Utah. Didn't George Kittle wear a T-shirt up under his jersey that said F Dallas?
Yes, he did.
Didn't that happen? Okay,
yes.
So we've seen NFL players express their disdain for rivals. Let's just get that out of the way. Number one, they're talking about how he cried in his mother's arms because he played one hell of a game and they ended up losing. When Bo Nix did it, it was called passion, was it not?
It was.
He cried on the sideline after losing the Pac-12 championship.
Do you remember TCU quarterback Max Duggan when they lost, I think, in the Big 12 championship?
Yes, and he cried on the sideline. They called it passion. So, and I'm not going to play the R card if you get what I'm trying to say, but the thing is, let's not switch up the standards. Let's not switch up the standards when it comes to someone being the first overall pick, because we've seen what he can do. Secondly, at this point in time, we have to understand this is a brand new generation. Their fashion sense is not going to particularly align with and I hate to use this term, is not going to align with the older crowd. It's not. And I hate to say that, but it's not going to allow. The things that I wear as a 36-year-old man is not going to be what my 22-year-old cousin wears as him, as a guy. It's not. Does that have anything to do with his leadership skills? No, it doesn't. Does that have anything to do with his football skills? No, it doesn't. So yes, it's very, very unfair, especially when they say, well, he's painting his fingernail. Yes, to express his disdain for a rival. And we've seen, and the thing is, they're criticizing him for painting his fingernails. We've seen worse. We've seen Shaq paint his fingernails. We've seen Shaq paint his toenails and thought it was flat out hilarious. We saw Dennis Rodman do it. We saw Dennis Rodman do some of the most weirdest, outrageous things.
Do you remember the wedding dress?
The wedding dress being on certain shows, which we won't say on the air. And we thought it was hilarious. We just flat out just laughed about it. Just had a ball about it. But for some reason, because this guy's in the NFL, they're trying to paint the picture of, well, he's supposed to be bigger than that. No, it's just a fashion shoot. It's fashion. Him painting his fingernails, it's just, we've seen football players do weirder stuff than this. We've seen guys put on the back of their jersey, "He hate me." We've seen guys. I never forget. I was a real little child. I never forget. I saw Tony Mandrich. He had something in his helmet that said something pertaining to or something way outside, but people thought it was hilarious when he did it. Right. So we've seen a lot more crazier things with prospects coming into the NFL. We saw Jerome Brown at the Fatigues game saying that the game between the University of Miami and Penn State was going to be war.
Okay.
We've seen crazier things than that. So let's not act like we have not seen crazy, off the wall things when it comes to the NFL, especially when you go to a GQ shoot. This is GQ. You're not going to see conventional outfits that guys on the street like myself would wear.
Right.
You're going to see certain things that people in the fashion industry wear. Does that have anything to do with football? No, it doesn't. It's just you expanding your brand.
I think the criticism of Caleb Williams, you mentioned the R word. Some people will make that argument, but I think it's because he does play quarterback. And when you play quarterback, you know the perception. You're like the CEO, you're like the face of the franchise. But my thing is, look, if that's what he wants to do I like the outfit personally? For me, nah, I wouldn't wear that outfit. But if that's what he wants to do, so be it. Why does that? I'm like, why does that play a factor or a bear in which it shouldn't? At the end of the day, just look at the tape.
Yeah.
People say stats lie, men lie, women lie, numbers never lie. Numbers can be misconstrued, but at the end of the day, the tape. Can the kid play? At the end of the day, the kid can play. The young man can play. And in terms of the fingernails, the dress, or whatever, I don't really give a shit about that. I think it's really ridiculous. If that's what you're trying to use to say he's not the number one overall pick, then to me, you're falling on deaf's ear.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, at the end of the day, you should just look at his play and play itself. And as far as his character, as long as he doesn't get into any serious off the field issues or anything like that, then as far as I'm concerned, I have no problem with it. I judge a person by their character. I judge a person by how they treat me and how they treat others. So, I mean, it's just a waste of time to bring up all the other things. And that's all I got to say.
We've seen a lot of superstar quarterbacks do a lot of crazy things as far as fashion is concerned. If you go back and look in the GQ magazine, we saw Mark Sanchez take a picture in a hot tub, dude. We've seen it. Long before that, and I'm gonna bring this up. People don't want to acknowledge this. Remember when we saw Joe Namath shaving his legs advertising pantyhose? Am I lying though?
You're not lying. You're not lying.
And we saw this back in the day when everybody's supposed to be all alpha male and all that rah-rah stuff. We saw that back then. So guess what? If he could get away with that back then, let's just be progressive and just let these young men live right now. That was back in the 60s. That was back in the 60s, by the way. Joe Namath did the pantyhose in the razor commercial.
I know, Chad, but I just think you just get held because, again, quarterback. Like, remember Colin Cowherd? Remember all the things he said about Baker Mayfield? Remember that? Remember the video of him chasing away from the cops? I mean, obviously that incident. I mean, but other than that, they look at other incidents with Baker Mayfield. Remember when he planted the flag at Ohio State or the Kansas game in which, when the Kansas players refused to shake his hand and during the sideline, he was grabbing his what?
Yeah.
So my thing is, as far as with the GQ outfit, I don't really have a problem with it because, to your point, that's what GQ's known for. They're known for wearing certain outfits that go too far. I don't like the outfit personally, but but hey, it is what it is. To
You
each
see a
his
lot
own.
of things at GQ. It's just like, am I really going to see that in a store? No, I'm not. So it's just like, because I read GQ. GQ. The state. Just
I
to
like
stay
some
up
of
there.
the outfits. That outfit in particular, I'm not.
You look like you on the episode of Dragon Ball Z. If you really want me to be honest with you.
But with that being said, I don't think that should cost him from being the number one overall pick. If he's not your quarterback because on the field related, that's fine. Although to a lot of people, he's the consensus choice for the number one overall pick. A lot of comparisons between him and Patrick Mahomes. But I don't think the outfit or the fingernails or anything else should be a factor for him being drafted or not. That's
No,
all I'm
I
saying.
don't think it should either. Like I said, we saw the great Joe Namath in the 60s wear pantyhose and shave his legs and had his legs on national television. Let's stop with the whole football players shouldn't act like this. We saw a lot of guys do a lot of crazy things. I mean, we saw Jay. I go back to Joe Namath. We saw him hang out in the pool hall with a whole bunch of guys doing chewing tobacco. We saw John Riggins be. You should hear some of the rumors about John Riggins. There was a rumor that he was that him and the offensive lineman used to have a shed on the practice field, and they used to go out there and drink every single day after practice. So we've seen a lot more, and that didn't affect his leadership, and he was out there getting drunk. So you wearing an outfit after seeing a lot of these things happen over years should not affect your questions about his play. Hey, the numbers may lie, but the tape don't. Look at the tape.
And I still think Caleb Williams is still one of the elite quarterback prospects that we've had. I mean, there's Trevor Lawrence, Joe Burrow, Andrew Luck. But when you look at Caleb Williams, and I know because before he went to USC, he played for Oklahoma. He took over for Spencer Rattler when Spencer Rattler struggled. Caleb Williams has it. He can make off-platform throws. On the field, I think he needs to do a better job getting rid of the ball faster because to your point with Justin Fields, if you put Caleb Williams behind that offensive line, it's not going to be much better for Chicago.
No.
But at the end of the day, Chicago may try to take him. They're probably going to trade that number 1 overall pick, and they may give it to the Commanders because, of course, Cliff Kingsbury, who's now the new offensive coordinator for the Commanders, who worked with Caleb Williams last year. And, of course, Caleb, familiar with the air raid offense from his time with Lincoln Riley. So maybe Washington, I don't know, they're going to probably draft a quarterback with the number 2 overall pick because I don't think Sam Howell is the future. And if they're not going to draft Caleb Williams, either Drake May, either Jaden Daniels, the Heisman Trophy winner from LSU, there's a lot of other options. But I still think at the end of the day, it all comes down to the tape with Caleb Williams. And the tape says he can play, he can succeed in the NFL. So what do you also think about what Merle Hodge had to say about Caleb?
I mean, Merle Hodge has been wrong as well, sometimes as well. So, I mean, people saw it. Well, he was right about Johnny Manziel. I mean, who couldn't see that coming from a mile away?
It's pretty obvious.
It's pretty obvious. But he was right about Johnny Manziel. Okay, I mean, what quarterback? I would say this: what quarterback do you know is always partying all the time, except for maybe Kenny Stabler and Joe Namath that ever made it to the Hall of Fame? Modern day quarterbacks don't party like that. Now you might see them in Hollywood and stuff like that, but you're not going to see them out partying every single day.
Not like that. Not to that.
Not like that. Extent. No, not like that. You with Drake every single day. You're always at a party. You always on the scene. And hey, if you really want to make this argument, you can say this. That's what ended up hurting Jimmy Garoppolo at the end of the day. You know, being more of a celebrity than he was a quarterback. So
I still laugh at the other thing that you said about Jimmy, but we won't go.
We ain't gonna put it on the
air. Speaking, you mentioned Johnny Manziel. Did you have the chance to watch that interview he had with Club Shay Shay?
Yeah, I had a chance. That was one hell of an interview, man. I mean, one hell of an interview. I mean, I didn't realize how. I didn't realize how much partying he was really doing.
You know, he lost 40 pounds.
Yeah.
From a cocaine diet.
Yeah. That makes you cringe just thinking about it. But yeah, he said cocaine, alcohol, taking a lot of other supplements as well. But but I'm glad that he addressed and took accountability of it. He didn't blame anybody but himself. And
no, he showed real accountability. I'm glad that Johnny is in a better situation in his life.
Yeah.
And I love Johnny coming out of Texas A&M. I mean, he was so exciting to watch because for a little guy at 5'11", 6 feet tall, barely over 200 pounds, for him to play, he was absolutely right on one thing, though. If he were in today's time with the NIL deals,
oh man, he probably be, hey, he probably be making more than that. You know, Johnny Foot. Hey man, everybody wanted to see Johnny Football. Everybody wanted to see Johnny Football, man. It was a ride, man. I don't think we I mean, I could be wrong, but the excitement, especially for an SEC guy, you know, usually you see him with running backs and stuff like that. We haven't seen we didn't see a quarterback like that in the SEC in a long time. So for you to be in the best football conference, arguably in the world, and you to be that explosive and that much notoriety, and remember, the whole money celebration and everything, for you to have all of that, you're in the SEC during a time where Alabama was just reigning supreme, and for you to win a Heisman as a freshman, something that we never thought that we would see ever.
He was putting up Cam Newton numbers during that
Yeah,
year.
yeah. So for you to do something like that, it's flat out amazing, man. And it is the house that Johnny built, man. It was amazing. It was amazing, man.
I definitely believe he probably would have made $20 million from the NIL deals, because that's how he was box office on the field because of his play, because people were so tuned in to watch Johnny Manziel. A lot of course, Skip Bayless, because Skip Bayless did say that Johnny Manziel would one day be even bigger than LeBron in Cleveland. He
Mhm.
also too, Johnny off the football field, he hanging out with Drake. You hanging out with LeBron. You going to NBA games. You're going to see KD, James Harden, CP3, and you're going to all these events, all these clubs, and you're like, you the man in college football,
Like I
especially
said,
in SEC.
yeah, in the SEC, I don't think, like I said, man, we see it now. In the SEC, I don't think we ever saw a celebrity quarterback like that. I don't. I have to go back and look, but I don't ever think we just saw a celebrity quarterback that was football was almost secondary. It was just like, man, it was like Johnny Football's on at courtside. Johnny Football's partying with Drake. He's partying with LeBron. That was special. But like I said, I mean, partying, being a celebrity and being a quarterback don't necessarily go hand in hand. And when you think
Right.
about it, a lot of those type of quarterbacks, the celebrity, the superstar type quarterbacks that's always in the club, they like what more football brings to them more than they like football.
Mm-hmm.
The invitation to the golf course, the invitation to the nightclub, the invitation to all of these big social events rather than liking football. And that's where people can kind of see it from a mile away that he wasn't going to succeed, because he
Mm-hmm.
loved being a celebrity more than he did being a football player. I mean, hey, when you're blasting music, if this would have been any other quarterback, and let's just tell it like it is, if it would have been any other quarterback, Cam Newton or Matthew Stafford or anybody else doing that at that time, blasting Drake at his pro day, the NFL would have had something to say about that.
Oh yeah. Needless to
Every
say,
commentator everywhere would have had something to say about that. I mean,
but
let Caleb Williams be blasting Drake on his pro.
oh my, Justin
That would
Fields.
cause a crap storm like we've never seen before.
Can you imagine the type of backlash that Caleb Williams would get if he would actually do that in front of those
Yeah.
NFL scouts and coaches?
Let Drake May do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That would
Let me
not
get
fly
that would not fly.
at all.
Some of the interesting things that he mentioned. Shannon Sharp asked him, which team would you like to get drafted? And he admitted Dallas. And he even said, thank God that the Dallas Cowboys didn't draft him, because he felt like if the Cowboys drafted him, it would have been much worse than what if you thought Johnny Manziel in Cleveland was bad. Oh my God, wait till you see Dallas, Texas. Dallas, they had the 16th overall pick at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It was reported that Jerry Jones wanted to draft Johnny Manziel because Texas kid, Texas A&M, put fans in the seats. Jerry Jones is big when it comes to box office and attraction. but his son Steven talked him out of it and decided to go in a different direction and drafted Zach Martin out of Notre Dame, which turned out to
Mhm.
be the right choice because Zach Martin, he's going to go to Canton. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. What did you thought about that with Johnny? With what he
What I'm
said?
looking up right now is I'm not ignoring what you're saying. I'm looking up the distance between Dallas and College Station. That's what I'm looking up right now. It's only a 2 hour and 40-minute drive. So, with that being said, it's kind of yeah, he was right on the money for being grateful that didn't happen. Because you being only a 2 hour drive away from where you went to college from, not everybody can handle that.
And we know the Cowboys' history of controversial players.
Yes. Yes.
we know that.
Yeah. I mean, Michael Irvin, hey, man, if you don't believe us on this podcast right now, go back and look at top 5 reasons you can't blame. They speak about a lot of things that happened with the Great Wall of Dallas, with Michael Irvin, a lot of those cases. I mean, hey, before Michael Vick got involved in the dogfighting cases, there was the Nate Newton case with the dogfighting.
I was going to bring that up.
So my
Yeah,
bad, I ain't mean to steal your thunder
no,
like
no,
that.
no, no. You good. You good. I
But yeah,
mean, that's why.
you are 2 hours and 40 minutes away from where you went to college at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But the good
So,
thing, but with Jerry, I mean, with Jerry, as long as you can ball, and as long as you can, I mean, remember, he did bring in Greg Hardy.
but to his credit, that situation happened after the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to think about that as well. That happened after the fact. And no, it didn't. No, it didn't. You're absolutely right. He did bring them
Remember,
in.
because
Yeah.
because remember, when Jerry signed Greg Hardy was convicted in the bench trial.
Yeah.
But then in the state of North Carolina, you can apply for a jury trial.
Yeah.
Greg Hardy was granted that. And when the woman who testified in the bench trial decided not to show up in the jury trial, and
Mm-hmm.
then she and Greg Hardy reached a financial settlement,
Yeah.
and there were the photos that were
Yeah.
released by Deadspin,
Yeah.
which, yeah, so.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Yeah. He took a, and which everybody bashed him for that, to be honest with you. And rightfully so. And and it ended up ending Greg Hardy's career in the long run. He ended up going to the UFC after the fact. But hey, that would have been a flat out disaster. You're only 3 hours away from where you went to college at, man. You could fly. Now you got all this money. You could fly guys in and fly stuff in that you really don't need to fly in. Not to mention Dallas is a trapping. I mean, people don't even realize before the Dallas Cowboys, getting in trouble, you had SMU getting into a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
You had SMU getting into a lot of trouble in Dallas. So it's easy to find trouble in Dallas. So, especially in a huge city like that. And especially when you got that star on your helmet. Hey, not to mention, remember Zeke got in trouble several times.
Yeah. Also, too, remember Randy Gregory, Des
Mm-hmm.
Bryant.
Yeah.
So there have been a lot of guys who play for the Dallas Cowboys that have had a checkered past.
Troublesome.
Yeah, troublesome. But with Jerry, as long as you can play and as long as you can find a way to put fans on their seats and help me make a ton of money, so be it. So another thing that Johnny Manziel talked about, we've talked about Caleb Williams, we talked about Johnny Manziel. The common denominator, not just quarterbacks, they're Heisman Trophy winners. He talked about Reggie Bush, and he said that Reggie Bush deserves his Heisman Trophy. What are your thoughts about that?
Give it back to him, because the thing is this. Look, and I'm trying to put this in a great way, but the thing is, there was a heck of a lot more going on than someone living in a house where after their parents got evicted. My parents got evicted, a booster stepped in and gave my parents a new house, and my parents are behind on bills and stuff like that. Booster steps in order to grant them something. And when they're in a bind, hey, Is that really breaking a rule? Is that breaking a rule? Yes. But is it mainly that booster and his humanity? Because, hey, my parents are falling up on hard times. I can't help them. Hey, let's move them into that house. I got this house you can move into in order to, help you during your hard times. And you took money from an agent because your parents were going through a hard time. Hey, there was a heck of a lot worse going on in college football. We've seen it.
Right. And
And
let's
now,
not go ahead.
and let's not forget, man, that UFC team. That was arguably, if that's the biggest controversy that you had on a person, their parents was going through a hard time and a booster reached out and helped them. If that's the only controversy that you had, considering some of the climates that we've seen, I consider that to be a good job.
Right. Because we've heard far worse. We've
Worse.
heard Penn
Far
State,
worse.
Michigan State.
Yes.
We don't have to get into all the details. You can just read them and look them up for yourselves.
Yes.
So compared to that, that's nothing. That's nothing. The reason he went to the specifics on why Reggie Bush hasn't received his Heisman back. What I've been told is that Reggie can't get his Heisman trophy back until the NCAA makes his records and his accolades on the field for that year reinstated. As we know what the NCAA is now, what do you think the chances are that they're going to do the right thing? It's not looking likely, and it's sad, and it's from the top down from the NCAA. They've been so wrong with so many things that you would hope that one day they would do the right thing and do this. I'm going to continue to do everything that I can in my power, whatever that may be. I'm just a little guy. I'm just an old first freshman to win it. I ain't got the clout like I used to be able to really make that happen. But for what I can and my part, I will always stand on this table right here for Reggie Bush and do anything that I can in my power to make sure that it's possible for him to even get his trophy back. I actually commend Johnny for that. And speaking of this, and I'm surprised you didn't bring this up, champ. I find it hard to believe. I could be wrong. Johnny Manziel signed 4 or 5,000 autographs and he received no compensation. Remember the Manziel documentary from Netflix?
Mm-hmm.
That's worse than Reggie Bush.
Hey, and when you think about guys who had cars driving around, I mean, Carson Beck is my quarterback from the University of Georgia. This guy just got a Ferrari truck. So these guys are literally riding around on campus right now with a Ferrari truck, which is going to bring the wrong type of attention, if you get what I'm trying to say. So you mean to tell me that my parents moving into a house after they fell behind on their bills, they're moving into a house that a booster provided? That's worse than a lot of other things that's been going on. And there's no way. Hey, let me tell you, the NC2A, they're smarter than what you think they are. So there's no way he could be. There's no way in your right mind you can justify. This is a young guy. I understand he came from money and stuff like that. I don't know what his parents really did. I have to go back and look at it. But Johnny Manziel came from money. But there's no way you can sit here and tell me that this guy could be courtside. I mean, all over the place, every which way turn left, but you don't believe anything's going on. Either you are turning a blind eye or you are the blind eye. Because I don't care. Prior to, even now, with guys in the NIL, the only guys that you see courtside is Deion and Shedeur Sanders.
Right.
You don't see a lot of guys sitting courtside at a football game or a basketball game or something like that. I'm finna go sit courtside. No, you don't
Obviously,
see them. Yeah, you might see them. You might see them at their college sitting courtside, but
not in
in
NBA,
the NBA,
NFL, no way,
yeah, no way.
because a lot of them don't have the money. Johnny, it's no surprise because if you look at his family's background, they come from money.
Mm-hmm.
I heard oil money.
Yeah.
So they have enough money and the resources to be able to go to games, to be able to go courtside, to be
Mhm.
able to do these types of things. But I find it hard to believe Johnny Manziel signed 4 or 5,000 autographs and no compensation.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, you're going to Miami. You heard what he said, man. He spent 70 grand in Miami. There's
Mm.
no way that you can tell me you did not
Remember
receive
the seven, all the 7 bands.
70, not 7 grand. So not 7 grand.
7
70
70.
grand. 70 grand. Bro, that's a year's salary.
Mhm. But I mean, but it was really great, man. But I only not only want to give credit to Johnny Manziel. Let's give a lot of credit to Shannon Sharp.
Mhm.
He is literally, I mean, champ all the time. People say you sound like Shannon Sharp or like or Shannon Sharp, but that's a positive because Shannon Sharp,
Yeah.
what he has done post football career to go from Hall of Fame tight end, 3-time Super Bowl champion, one of the greatest tight ends who ever played in the NFL, in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. He was an NFL analyst on CBS. He worked for ESPN for a little bit when Stephen A wasn't there. He was there for Skip. He went to Skip. He started skipping Shannon's Undisputed with Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless picked him because normally that job, that role, for a debate show is reserved for journalists and columnists. And Shannon
Mhm.
Sharp proved that I can do the job. And Skip, in fairness to Skip Bayless, I don't agree with everything that Skip has done or said, but I will
Mhm.
give credit for Skip Bayless for giving him the opportunity. But at the end of the day, Shannon Sharp had to prove people why he was worthy of the opportunity. We seen
Mhm.
what he did for Undisputed, and now what he's doing with Club Shay Shay, Nightcap. I mean, I mean, the Cat Williams interview broke the internet. I'm still watching the interview with Cat Williams. I'm still watching the Monique ones. What do you think about the greatness of Shannon Sharp, man? Because he's my favorite TV personality other than Charles Barkley. I think he has done a phenomenal job. Life after football. I mean, he's got his own cognac. I mean, he's doing a lot of things showing that he's more than just an athlete. He's a businessman, he's an entrepreneur. He's great. He connects with the people. I mean, why do you think people call him Unc? I mean, he
Yeah.
has charisma, he has personality, he has a smile that can light up a room. I think Shannon Sharp, man, is huge. What do you think of Shannon Sharp?
Hey man, being a fellow Georgian, man, I'm so happy to see Shannon Sharp just come up like that, man. I watched him as a child, man. I seen, that Terrell Davis team. I saw how big of a trash talker that he was on the field. That to see something like that is nothing short of amazing. Not to mention during the social media era, where people can say, well, he's a big name. It's either for that. Not necessarily, because there's a lot of our attention is so spread out these days. It's hard to hone in on one thing, especially when you interviewing these caliber guys, because hey, you got to think about it. A lot of guys watch Vlad TV as well.
Yeah, they
He's a
do.
big interviewer. So you
Mhm.
got to think about the competition who you're competing with. You're competing with Vlad TV. You're competing with guys who directed certain movies uh who were from Miami. I don't want to say the documentary's name on the air, but you get the documentary I'm saying. Um Certain, crime documentaries. You have certain guys that interview they have you have to compete with all the smoke. You have to compete with those guys. So for you to be competing with those guys and not only matching but exceeding those expectations, and you are independent, it's nothing short of amazing, man. It's like, wow. I mean, he had over a million subscribers by month one
Right.
for Nightcap. I mean,
And yeah, and he broke the internet with the Cat Williams. Is it what now? 60 million?
60 million people. That's more to put that in context. That's half of how many people watch the Super Bowl.
It's
120
crazy.
million people watch the Super Bowl. 60 million watched that interview.
I mean, it's crazy.
And
It's
if you ask
60 million. 60 million.
Yeah. So, I mean, and not only that, you got to think about this. He's not done. My thing is, that's just one interview.
Yeah, he's got more.
That's just one interview. And that's not including, man, guess what? Johnny Manziel documentary, interview, just came out a couple days ago. And I'm telling you how many views that's going to get.
Yeah.
That's just the views you have right now.
I think it's going to open the door because even bigger names are going to come. Who knows? I mean, I hope. For me, I would love to see an Oprah or Shannon Sharpe interview.
Yeah, I would love to see that too. I would love to see a lot of other draft busts, I will say. Well, I don't like using that word. Guys who didn't necessarily pan out in the NFL tell their story. I would love to see guys like a Marcus Dupree,
Jamarcus Russell.
Jamarcus Russell, even though he was on, the pivot and things of that nature. I would love to see other guys like that. I would love to see Heath Schuler, guys like that was college all-stars, but didn't necessarily pan out in the NFL. One in particular I'd love to see is Andre Ware, because I don't think he got a true shot in Detroit in order to be their quarterback.
Right. But I think he's going to definitely open the door for a lot of people. And not just, I mean, Cap Williams, you've interviewed Cedric the Entertainer, you interviewed Steve Harvey, you even got Snoop, you even got Usher. He's gotten a lot of people and he has a lot of connections, not only from the sports, but also from the music industry. So I'm quite sure that, hey, have him have him at his place, drink his cognac or whatever, talk about whatever y'all want to talk about. And it's just so exciting, so refreshing. And it was great. It was just great watching the interview because Shannon Sharpe, I think he's one of the elite people in sports media. And I think for Johnny, even though I wish although his career didn't turn out the way I wish it would have hoped, but I'm glad that he's on a better path with his life now. He seems healthy. He seems good. He's definitely in great spirits. I think he's learned a lot. The greatest apology is change behavior. And I think once you realize the mistakes that you've done, you just look back and what you have to do differently in order to be a better person, in order to be a better man or a better woman. And I think Johnny has shown that. So it was really exciting. It was really great watching that interview. I was just really pleased. So now let's move on to some WWE. I got a start bench and cut for you. I did this with Brandon, Maria, and I did it with Jay Bailey from Stay Tuned. Shout out to Jay Bailey from Stay Tuned.
Mm-hmm.
This one right here.
Okay. All right. I like that.
There's The Rock, Cena, and my GOAT, Stone Cold Steve Austin. I'm going to let you go, champ. Who you starting, benching, and cutting?
Okay, man. Look, this is difficult for me, man, because I grew up during the Attitude Era. And hey, man, The Rock and Stone Cold you're not going to get a better 1-2 punch during a particular time. Usually there's only one guy that's just popular. And then the other guy is semi-popular, but not as popular. But for starting, man, I have to go with Stone Cold, man. Stone Cold, in my humble opinion, saved the WWE, man. With that, I mean, if you think about the competition that they had with the NWO, and because you got to think about everything that WCW that they was facing with WCW. They was facing the NWO. They was facing Goldberg. I mean, a powerhouse like a Goldberg. Hulk Hogan, Kevin Nash. I mean, not to mention people, the cruiserweights.
Right. And then remember Bret Favre, because after the Montreal Screw job, he went to WCW.
Yeah, Bret Hart. Yeah, Bret Hart. He after the Montreal Screw job, he went to WCW. So I have to start Stone Cold simply because he was one of the saviors of the WWE during that time. Now, granted, his peak wasn't that long, but I mean, for him to come in during that short period of time, during the Attitude Era, people got to think about this. He came in at a time where people were starting to turn back to wrestling at a certain point.
Thank you. And he was the anti-hero. He wasn't the superhero like Superman or Batman or anything like that. He was I'm sorry to interrupt you. He was beer swelling, finger gesturing, foul mouth dude that a lot of people wish they could have been. Him and Mr. McMahon. In the Vince McMahon is the greatest villain in the Attitude Era because he was the CEO, he's the boss, and Austin is the employee going after him. And I just think, I mean, Austin 316, remember King of the Ring?
Yeah. I ordered that pay-per-view, by the way. I ordered that pay-per-view. I ordered that pay-per-view. Back then, it was $29.
But I told you before, I'm starting Stone Cold. Yeah. I agree with you, Peak. I wish Austin, unfortunately, he doesn't have the longevity. A lot of it has to go to SummerSlam, rest his soul, Owen Hart, the pile driver. But when I look at Stone Cold Steve Austin, had it not been for that injury, Austin could be, in my opinion, he would be the clear GOAT if he had longevity. Because if you imagine if Austin going up against guys like Cena, Batista, Randy Orton later on, can you imagine how great the WWE would be if Austin was going up against those guys?
Yeah, and I think he got cheated by the WWE by having him go up against them too early. We all saw the whole incident between him and Brock Lesnar, well, him and Vince McMahon, where they wanted Brock Lesnar to go over on him during the King of the Ring qualifier match.
Right.
And yes.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that because Austin, he said that Jim Ross called him with the creative idea, tells him long story short that Austin's doing a job for Brock Lesnar on Monday Night Raw. Yeah. And when Austin heard that, he was like, oh, really? Well, if that's the case, I ain't going to show up. So he went on, he got up, he had 2 Bloody Marys, went on an airplane and flew to San Antonio because that's where he lived at the time. And he was mad. He also said it ain't about winning or losing. I'll let anybody beat me. As long as there's a reason for it, it means something, and there's money behind it. And when Austin felt like none of those things were promised were fulfilled, he was like, nah, I ain't doing this. As they said, that he took his ball and he went home.
Yeah, and I can't blame him for that because the thing is, Vince McMahon and a lot of those guys criticized Stone Cold Steve Austin for doing that, but out of that same mouth, they criticized WCW for doing the same thing with the Hollywood Hulk Hogan and the Goldberg match that appeared on Monday Night Raw. You see how that comes out of everybody else's mouth? It's like, yeah, right. I want you to go over somebody to go over on you on Monday night. I'm going to criticize you for not doing that. But out of that same mouth, I'm going to criticize another company for letting a up and coming star go over up on Hulk Hogan on Monday Night Raw on national television rather than on a pay-per-view. You see how that works? That just goes to show you whoever wins writes the history books.
Yeah, but I think, and to this day, I don't know, Austin 316 is still one of the highest t-shirts.
Yeah.
I mean, I bet you right now, because we're about almost 4 weeks away from March 16th. There's going to be John 316. There's going to be some Austin 316 t-shirts. There's going to be some people impersonating as Stone Cold, but and also in a pop culture genre. Yeah. In a pop culture genre, he was it. I mean, he was on Celebrity Deathmatch. He was on a lot of stuff at the time, and also he was people just loved him. And I give a lot of credit to Bret the Hitman Hart. He even thanked Bret the Hitman Hart for the matches. Remember WrestleMania 13?
Yeah.
Remember that match, the legendary match, all those other great matches. And also his last match, WrestleMania 19 as well. That was a great one with him and The Rock. So, and also Mike's skills, personality, and as far as entrances, other than the Undertakers, can you name a better entrance than Austin? The moment when you hear that glass break, and when you see an SOB like him walking down to the ring, you know all hell's gonna break loose. And also the catchphrases that he had. Still, like, and that's the bottom line because Stone Cold says so.
What's so
You can
funny
make an
about
argument
this?
you can make an argument he's the GOAT. I have no problem if anybody said Undertaker, Ric Flair, or Hulk Hogan, but Austin got to be in that convo.
What's so funny about that phrase is they try to replicate it and give it to the Big Show. Remember when the Big Show was saying that's the last word? That was funny. I was like, wait a minute, that ain't nothing but Stone Cold phrase.
Yeah.
So man, I'm starting Stone Cold on, man. Look, man, Stone Cold. It was huge, man. I mean,
bigger than wrestling.
Bigger than wrestling, man. Everybody, I mean, look, everybody knows. And like I said, man, it's that Southern charm, man. You know, everybody knows if you're from the South, you know that one guy who loves to drink beer, that loves to go hunting, that loves to, you know, have a good time, but on his own terms, that dances to the beat of his own drum, no matter what background he's from. Everybody, if you're from down south, you know that guy. Everybody knows him. So it's so relatable. And everybody knows that one guy who could just go to work and just trash his boss. And it's just like, well, this dude is making me money, so I can't really fire him at this point. So, you know, he gonna go to work. He just like, bro, I'm not doing this today. He was like, okay, that's my top worker, though. I'm not gonna fire him. But everybody knows that guy, you know. And we know that guy at work. You know, everybody knows the boss that ain't the boss. You know, it's just like, yeah, we got this guy at work that, you know, he is the top guy. Ain't no way they fire him. I don't care what he do. The only way they fire him is he don't show up, which that's how it ended up, and which ironically, that's how it ended up coming to an end with Stone Cold. So he just didn't show up.
We starting Stone Cold. Who you benching?
This is a hard one for me because, like I said, I grew up in the Attitude Era. I saw The Rock and Stone Cold at their peak. In fact, they aired that. They sold WrestleMania on that match 3 times in a row, Rock and Stone Cold. But The Rock never had this one title reign that you can just really, really say that he was boiling over guys. His title reign was last. It seems like his title reigns were pretty much handoffs. It's like he would win the title and then a month down the line, he's dropping it. He would win the title and then, you know, a couple months down the line, he's dropping it. And it's just like, although he was popular and his mic skills were impeccable, and he's the primary reason for their secondary show, SmackDown. You know, SmackDown, you know, but for that reason, but as far as wrestling related, for that reason, I have to cut The Rock, which is, like I said, a hot take because he never had that one dominant title reign. John Cena did. And you got to think about this. For him to transition out of the ruthless aggression era into the PG era was nothing short of spectacular. He was virtually a lot of people's version, excuse me, my apologies. He's virtually a lot of people's version of Hulk Hogan these days. He was, except the hip hop version. Yeah. You know, he was virtually,
you know, especially with the never give up.
Yes.
Especially with the never give up, because a lot of people talk about wrestlers. So Kobe Bryant, the late great Kobe Bryant, they talk about the Mamba mentality. They love that never give up mentality, especially with the kids, encouraging them that regardless, you can get through anything in life. You can do anything in life as long as you're willing to work and pursue. So yeah, he definitely made a great transition from the ruthless to the PG era. Because going from the old signature move, which I'm not going to use in the ruthless era, to now the attitude adjustment.
And I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of mad when they changed it like that. Wait a minute, that's another move's name. That's not an attitude adjustment. But for you to go from that era. It's hard to me, it's easy for you to go into from a PG standpoint to a hardcore standpoint. It's not that easy for you to dial it all the way back and make it suitable. It's kind of like going from a rated R movie and you're trying to dial it back to make it a PG movie or a rated G movie so it can be relatable to kids. So it's just like, if for you to be able to do that, for you to be able to dial it all the way back from the Ruthless Aggression era to kind of like, to never give up, say your prayers and, and take your vitamins type of deal, where you was this generation's Hulk Hogan and there was nobody bigger than you, it's kind of nothing short of amazing at this point. So, and plus, Cena had 2 title reigns that were a year long, and he was defending it on a regular basis. Remember when 2005, when he first became the champ, remember Eric Bischoff had it out for John Cena when he first took over Raw.
Yeah, you remember on draft day, fans were excited.
Yeah, 2005. I mean, and it's safe to say, people say that's when the Attitude Era, that's when the Ruthless Aggression, the Attitude Era truly died that day, when John Cena was drafted to Raw. So that's when people say that's when the Attitude Era truly died that day. But for that, the longevity, pop culture, because it's been almost 20 years since John Cena won his first WWE title.
He won it in 2005, WrestleMania 21 to John Bradshaw Layfield.
Yeah, so it's been almost 21 years, and he stayed in the game for a long, long time. And he didn't have to, and to his credit, he didn't have to he didn't have to be a heel. Usually,
he stayed the same.
He stayed the same. Usually, I mean, and this is not taking any credit from the Undertaker. I hope nobody that watches this takes it that way. If you really look at the Undertaker over the years, started as a heel, anti-hero, hero, anti-hero, heel, hero, heel. He changed his character throughout the years from heel to face. John Cena didn't do that. He stayed a face the entire time. The entire time he went up the card, and it just remained that way. Even when people were booing him at a certain point, people were booing John Cena, and he still remained one of the biggest faces that we ever want to see. So for that reason, starting Stone Cold, benching Cena, and unfortunately, love Rocky, but I got to cut The Rock, man. Like I said, simply because he didn't have that one dominant title reign that I could look back and say, man, he was a world beater when he did that. His title reigns were very much in spurts.
It's tough for me, man. Mention previously, I had The Rock because I think The Rock had mic skills. I think he had better mic skills than Cena, especially when he said, "It doesn't matter what you think," or jabroni, or all the other things. Unfortunately for Rock, he doesn't have the title reign. Cena, to your point, how he transitioned from the Ruthless to the Attitude Era. Unlike Stone Cold and The Rock, he didn't change heel. Austin, people forgot Austin changed heel in 2001. Remember the match against The Rock, I believe WrestleMania 17, when Vince interfered, and then after the match, they're shaking hands?
Yeah.
I'm going to still go with The Rock to bench.
Okay. You can't go wrong with either one.
I feel mad because, again, a lot of youngsters are going to be mad and say, why not Cena? Why not never say never? Why not? But Rock, the background from where he came from. Also, he played college football at the U. Yeah, so of course, the U. And then how he went from the wrestler. And then also the match with him and Cena, the first one in Miami, that was huge. And especially for The Rock, for him to come back after being away from the WWE in 7 years?
Yeah.
But I feel bad like I'm cutting Cena and benching Rock. I mean, people are gonna say it's blasphemous on my part though, but it's not an easy decision. It's really not.
It's really not. And when you think about that, those are arguably three. outside of Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair, those are arguably the biggest superstars the past 45 years of wrestling. I mean, if you introduce each of those guys at their peak, you don't know who's going to get a bigger pop.
Right. And
So,
Pop Rock is up there as well.
yeah.
I mean, there's Taker, there's Austin. I just look at the wrestling skills as far as in-ring wrestling skills between Stone Cold, Rock, Cena. Who do you think is the best one? I think would probably be Cena.
I take the wrestling skills. I go with Stone Cold
Really?
because
Because a lot of people thought he was bad. He started to get worse, particularly after the Owen Hart injury and how he had to transition from a technician to like a brawler. But people forgot how good he was back in his days in WCW and in
yes,
ECW.
and that's exactly where I was going. I have to look at the overall body of work because if you ever notice, outside of maybe Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar, once you make it to a certain echelon, you're no longer doing those 1 hour matches anymore. You're really not. I think the only person that did that once he reached a certain echelon was Triple H. He continued to have 30-minute and 1 hour matches. But, for Stone Cold, I mean, his popularity was so that, you had to revolve stuff around, oh, yeah, he's a brawler. I mean, if you got a good, and I don't think it necessarily changed because he hurt his neck as well. When you got a guy that's going from being the ringmaster to a guy in a bar, who are you going to relate to a little bit more? Who am I going to
Stone
put
Cold
out there?
Steve Austin.
Yeah, I mean, I got to put a guy out there for the fans to relate to. And you being a technician in the ring isn't conducive to you being a guy in a bar that I'm necessarily going to be watching, looking for every time I go into one.
You remember the list of nicknames they gave Austin, like Otto Von Ruthless, Chili McFreeze, Ice Dagger.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the worst names you gotta really think of, and he even thought Ringmaster sounded like shit.
Yeah.
They even I'm sorry for my language, but that's what Austin said. Those are his exact words. But his wife at the time made him a cup of tea, and she told him drink it before it gets stone cold. And then he came up, and then she's like, "That's your name, Stone Cold Steve Austin." He came up with being Victoria, Texas.
Yeah.
And he changed his whole appearance, going from all the other outfits he wore to wearing black, the black trunks, the black boots, because he liked black. He thought black was badass, going back to the Raiders and Darth Vader from Star Wars.
Yeah.
And then how he ultimately cut down the hair, going to a bald goatee. And he even admitted once he hit that goatee, he became more menacing.
Yeah.
And shout outs to Paul Heyman. Because remember, Eric Bischoff fired Austin in 95 after when he suffered a terrible injury. And then he didn't even tell him to his face. He called him on the phone and let him know that he's going to get fired. And Paul allowed Austin to come in and be his authentic self because he wanted that authentic outrage because of how he was running ECW at the time. And then Jim Ross picked him up.
Hey, shout out to Paul Heyman because he was the Attitude Era before the Attitude Era ever came about.
Yes, and Jim Ross too. We can't discount Jay. I mean, but Paul Heyman, to your point, man, the Attitude Era. You cannot talk about Attitude Era and you don't mention him.
ECW,
Yeah,
because ECW, those guys, man, we grew up in a great era, man. ECW, WCW, WWE, they're the greatest wrestling company ever.
I think my favorite moment of Austin, other than him saying Austin 316, I just whipped your ass at King of the Ring, either him driving the Zamboni and then beating McMahon, or the beer truck one when he's spraying Vince, Shane, and The Rock beer, man, prior to WrestleMania 15. Cena, my favorite moment, I would say from him, WrestleMania. I mean, of course, him and The Rock, and also the first WrestleMania that he won against John Bradshaw Layfield, because once he won that one, it was going to change. Not only WWE, but outside the ring. He even did the rap albums. I mean, the chain, the belts, all that stuff. So
That was beautiful. Hey, favorite John Cena moment has to be when he won the tables out of the chairs match against Edge in Toronto.
oh yeah, that was good
Because
too.
you had every odds against you had every single odds going against you.
And
But
that's
yeah,
Ed's expertise type of match.
yes, because that Edge never lost that match, and plus it was in Toronto,
Where he's
Edge's
from.
hometown. Yeah.
Mhm.
Only thing I hate is that every time that John Cena went to Boston, Massachusetts, where he was from, he got trashed every time he got there. Every time, because it's like every
I don't
time
make
you
no
go,
sense. That don't make
yeah,
no sense.
yeah, it's just like every time he goes to Massachusetts, it's like, okay, something bad finna happen to John Cena today.
That's even worse than Shawn Michaels. Because we can't say what we on the air what the Canadian fans have said to Shawn Michaels after the
Yeah.
Montreal Screwjob.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
But
blank Brett. Yeah.
yeah, but all three of them great wrestlers. I'm starting Stone Cold, benching The Rock, cutting Cena, but this is not an easy choice. Not an
Yeah,
easy
not
choice.
not at all. I mean,
All right, one last one, and again, this is nothing to do with politics, folks. This is just fashion alone, just for context. Okay. Champ, I saw these pair of shoes. You gonna rock these shoes right here? $400, my man.
$400. I mean, you might as well go to guilt.com and get you a pair of red bottoms or something, but I don't know. I mean, I mean, I mean, you know what? I mean, on a good summer day, I rock the Trump ones.
My response.
Is that what they call the Trump ones?
I think so. I don't know what the hell they called for. I'll tell you this: ain't no way in hell I'm buying them shoes. First of all, not my cup of tea. I have a better chance of buying a PlayStation 5 than them Trump shoes. I'm not buying them. But I mean, but some people may look at it and say, "All right, it's okay." I mean, you see the colors and all that other stuff, but
If I was
I
Trump,
don't know if they were $400 to me
I
though.
would call Cartoon Network and see if I could get you remember Major Glory?
Yeah. Oh yeah. But so
Yeah, call them the glory ones. Yeah.
and we gonna end on that note, but
Yeah.
nah, I ain't buying. I don't care if anybody give me a pair of shoes. I'm not taking them. That's for sure. I got a better chance getting me a PS5. I got a better chance getting me some other stuff. I mean, I'd rather go. I'm thinking about going to the store, going to the mall right now, buying me some Balenciaga, some Louis Vuittons, and something like that. I ain't spending $400 on them type of sneakers.
I mean, he wouldn't be the first. I mean, um, hey, in credit to the former President Trump, he's not the first person to overprice a pair of shoes. Remember the Alonzo Ball shoes that really it was like
Big ball of brands.
the big baller brand. I'm like, I don't wear that. What the world? I mean, I think that was like $500 or something like that. So
Oh no, but by the way, which shoe looks better, the Trumps or the big ballers?
just to be different, I'm gonna say I go with the Trump. I go with the Trump one. Yeah, I go with the Trump ones. Not with the Trump ones. Just to see how much
I
traction I can. Just see how much traction I can get with them. I can't, but yeah,
if
I
the
mean,
Trumps come in different colors,
mm,
I might consider it. I
yeah,
might consider it. If you give me some purple and black, if you give me some like green or something, we can do some talking. But not those exact shoes. I ain't buying them. But I'm going with the big baller ones.
yeah.
But
I mean, you can't go wrong. I mean, Like I said, I'm saying that to be different, man. You know, I'll rock the Trump ones just to see what folks gonna say.
Well, I know y'all know my opinion. Ain't no way in hell. I mean, unless you pay me $1,000, $2,000. If somebody tells me, "Hey, if you wear these shoes, we give you $2,000-$3,000." Okay, well, we can.
I
I
put
can
the
do.
Trump ones on.
We can do something. We can work something out. I'll put the Trump ones on as long as you pay me $2,000-$3,000, and I take Zelle, I take cash only, Zelle or cash. You better find a way to compensate me if I'm going to be out in these streets rocking them shoes. That's all I'm saying.
The Trump one.
But anyway, folks, that concludes the rest of the Sports PSP podcast. I appreciate my guy, Undisputed World Champ, for hopping in, man. Please, again, tell them where to follow you at, my man.
Undisputed GOAT will return in 3 weeks and build up to the NFL draft. We're working out a few things going on. I will have a guest host in a couple of weeks, and me and him will be hosting build up to the draft. So in the meantime, catch me on TikTok and on Instagram at worldchamp_2.0, at TikTok, Undisputed World Champ. Videos will be coming at least 3 times a day. I have new content loaded every single day. So make sure you follow me on those 3 platforms. Undisputed GOAT show will be returning in 3 weeks and build up to the draft. Thank you as always, PSP, for letting me be on your show.
As always. And y'all know where to follow me at, folks. The Sports PSP podcast, like and subscribe to the YouTube channel, as well as IG, as well as TikTok, Sports PSP3. There will be a new episode on the Sports PSP podcast Friday night. I'll be back Friday night. Like I said, I needed to take some time off yesterday, but hey, I will be back next Friday. We'll try to come up with some more NFL, and we'll try to come up with some more NBA content. So y'all enjoy the rest of y'all day. I'll definitely try to, again, come up with some more NBA, NFL content for Friday. But like I said, man, y'all enjoy the rest of y'all weekend. Y'all stay safe and peace.